Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. And today we're going to answer a letter from somebody whose boyfriend doesn't seem to want to be with her. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners.
No, we are not professionals. We are not trained in any of this whatsoever. So please take our advice as you see fit. We're only here to offer our humble musings, so hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding, but mostly confusing experience that is love. But first, it's Monday, so we're going to do a quick check-in topic inspired by an adorable letter written to us from just a small town boy, which I could not read without singing.
100%.
Whose pronouns are he, him, who is writing to us from an obnoxiously family-friendly small town. And basically, the summary of the letter is that this person is a 29-year-old cishet man who is online dating and reflecting about what, online dating and dating in general has brought to his life. And he's having a little bit of a hard time because he feels like he has met a roadblock in the romantic online dating world based on demographics. He says he lives in a fairly small town in the southeast United States. And even though it's a relatively large metro area and a lot of young people live there, many of them are looking to get married early or start a family. Many of them have conservative values, which are in opposition to what he's looking for. He adorably wrote, I'm trying to meet my socialist Morticia Adams. And as somebody who wasn't sure at 9 years old whether she wanted to be Morticia or be Gomez so I could be in love with Morticia, I totally relate to that.
That's really real.
Anyway, the question is basically how do I not get discouraged about online dating where the demographics seem to be against, the dating pool, if we're going to use the weird fish metaphor, is a little bit smaller, in less alignment with what we want or what they want, Do we move for dating? That was one of his questions. Do I move to a larger city to be closer to people who are more in alignment with my values? And how do you not feel like you are doing something wrong? Or how do you get over this roadblock based on demographics, as the letter already writes, which I appreciated. And I thought we could pull this out as a check-in topic because I know that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people out there on dating apps right now. And we're all having a similar but mildly different experience. And it's all can be all equally discouraging. So just talking about the general grind of online dating, how to approach it, what's the right mentality, and would you move to have a bigger pool? Maybe that would be a general discussion topic.
Yeah, I think that this, that I can sort of resonate with some of this. When I would go back to my hometown before I started dating Peter and before my parents left my hometown, right? Which was in pretty rural Wisconsin, right? I would open up Grindr and just be oh my God, so many headless torsos of people describing themselves on the DL, and they're the closest one is 24 miles away or something. You know what I mean? It would just be
yeah.
Oh man, okay. I don't know that there's a lot going on. Of course, it was also around the holidays. So there would be people that I knew from high school and be this one too. Oh my God, they're just all gay now. But also even living in Minneapolis, right? Being part of a queer community, there's only so many of us. And, opening up dating apps and seeing across the dating apps, the same people over and over again, who are also the same people that I would run into at the bars, right? There is kind of a sense of this pool is really small and I know these people, or I have seen these people before. I can make assumptions about this person, knowing what I've heard about them from other people. And that sort of, it's really disheartening, I think, to be in a place where it's like, oh, it's not even my fault. It's just like the demographics around us. And so like, I can deeply understand that piece of it. And also I want to say, like, on the other end of the spectrum, people who live in big cities and have endless options of people to scroll through are experiencing a different type of like social and romantic malaise, because it's like there are so many people to pick that no one is like committing to anything, right? Like if the next best person is going to be one swipe away, then like folks are challenged to commit or to get other people to commit to them, right? Like, and I think the long and short of this is that like the issue here is demographics, of course, and it is like the place where people are living in both of these instances. But the issue also is just online dating, and the ways in which these apps like gamify our attraction to people, and the ways in which like it's so difficult to meet people outside of using these apps that are I think really challenging for our mental health and for our like ability to be in meaningful relationship with ourselves and others. Not to say that we shouldn't be using them, right? Like, because they are in some ways like a necessary evil, like lots of social media is, but it is like, it's hard to not internalize that kind of stuff when you're just like, this is hopeless. Here's the same 8 people again, and they all want this thing that I don't want. It's just really challenging. I totally get it.
Yeah. I think about a couple things when I read this letter, and think about online dating. I think unfortunately the game of online dating is that you have to be open to finding out. If people aren't super clear on their profiles in terms of like want kids or don't want kids or conservative or progressive or whatever, you have to like play the numbers game. You have to like stick around to find out, unfortunately, which can be really exhausting and can lead to this sense of burnout or this sense of disconnection or discouragement that so many of us feel when we're online dating. I also want to say, like specifically to the letter writer, but to anybody who's feeling like their pool is getting a little repetitive or like shallow, I think there's a lot of stigma out there about long distance relationships. I, for one, somebody who's been in like multiple long distance relationships, whenever I was online dating, I was like, I am not doing that shit again. I am not setting my thing to 100 miles or whatever. I'm doing 25 miles tops,
Absolutely.
But I guess I just wanted to the letter writer and to anybody feeling like their pool is a little limited or like that they're feeling like they're not finding what they want in their own city, long distance relationships lead to great connections and great partnerships, and they lead to life-changing choices like moving cities, or whatever. And that they can be a really fulfilling and wonderful way to have connection. So that's another way to look at it. If I'm just thinking practically about like how to answer this letter, I'd be like, extend that mileage, friend. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Like be open to your neighbors or whatever. And lastly, I love the point that you made about like, even in Minneapolis, a big city, you see the same faces, I think that's like important to remember that like these apps are gamified. They are addicting. They are the means of connection right now. Side note, I have so many elders in my life right now on online dating, which I love. I think it's
really
great. But yeah, totally.
I love it.
I love it too. I'll tell you who in a second.
I can't wait.
And going to the general question of like, do you move to increase the chance of meeting your socialist Morticia Adams? Like, do you uproot your life for the perceived increased opportunity for like-minded connection? Or do you stay in the place where the letter writer writes, I already have a rich social life filled with people who make me feel loved and valued?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? I mean, you went from Wisconsin to Minnesota.
Yeah, but for school. Like I wasn't like, oh, I need to find the love of my life in a different place. And also like everyone around me was also dispersing across different areas. Yeah, I mean, I think that is really difficult because part of me wants to like challenge the idea of romantic love as being sort of the be all end all and recognize that like, you know, being surrounded by a community of friends and neighbors who love and appreciate and support you is also a fulfilling way to live your life, even if romantic love isn't part of that equation. And part of me is also like, you know, each of us is capable of trying something new and finding something different in a bigger place. But I also like, I want to offer the idea that it's not just geography that is making this difficult. You know, like I think it's just difficult regardless of where you live, right? And each sort of has its own challenges for sure. But I want to just like name that so that we're not coming up in this and saying like, oh, if I were in a different place, it would be so much easier. Or if my sexuality was different, it would be easier, or whatever it might be. Because what I know to be true of my own experience and what others are telling me is that like the whole online dating experience itself is challenging no matter where you are and what you're into.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like a good reminder, and it's not a reminder used to discourage us. It's meant to say like, this feels hard because it is hard, but it's the right path. You know what I mean? Or it is a path to connection or whatnot. I think I would say in terms of like the question of like, do you move to increase your chances? That's so deeply personal. I will just say, I think that it is okay to move with great intention towards the things that you want in your one wild and precious life. I also think that can be done in micro actions instead of just big macro actions. You know what I mean? If you can set that intention in every way you move through the world, like, okay, I'm going to go to a coffee shop and I'm going to be like, maybe I'll meet somebody today, or I'm going to move to, you know, Philadelphia because I'm really interested in cultivating a more progressive community of people I can date. I don't know. You know what I mean? I do think action has to be taken to achieve some goals that we want. And sometimes the hurdles of online dating makes it feel like we're just treading water. But you can remind yourself that your actions can be small, everyday things, not just like big things. I'm not against the big move. I'm not against it. I think like anytime somebody around me has like made a huge act of intention and put energy and power and huge life choices behind it, I think it's cool because it's like, yeah, go get that. But it can also be something that's shifted internally in you, you know?
And you can always go home, you know, like that you can always return to the community if you know, you find that moving to a bigger city wasn't for you. And I think that that's also important to remember, right? Like each of these decisions, of course, has consequences and opportunity costs, and it's not like the be all end all decision, right? Nothing is 100% set in stone, and we have the capacity to change our mind, and that's okay too.
All right. Well, fun little conversation about online dating fatigue and whether or not you should uproot your life to try to find a good date.
Oh, that's fun.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Yeah. All right. On that note, let's dive into today's letter that's not about online dating. It's from Jane Doe, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing to us from Canada. Dear Sam and Sierra, I have been with my partner, he, him, 30-year-old, for 5 years. I'm 26. I thought I was going to marry this man. I had never felt more seen and heard than when I was with him. We share a similar upbringing and both have anxiety and depression and recently diagnosed ADHD. We're both introverts and enjoy being homebodies. The first 4 years of our relationship, we lived half an hour apart and mostly only saw each other on weekends. He planned to move into my city once he found a job. And when he finally did, he bought a house and didn't ask me to move in. I was extremely hurt, but thought maybe he was planning a sweet way of asking me to move in. We planned to spend the first night in his new place together, and he spent the day moving in with his friends and family. They all had dinner together, so I was waiting for him to invite me over like we had planned. 8 p.m. rolls around, and I ask what's up, and he says he's super tired from moving and was going to take a shower and go to bed. I was feeling hurt again and decided to bring it up the next time we saw each other. He apologized and said he didn't realize it meant so much to me. We continue to only see each other on weekends, despite living a 5-minute drive from each other and the occasional sleepover on the week or during the week, which I would initiate. I think I spend a lot of time resenting him for waiting for him to ask me to move in. The ball was in his court as I would be moving into his house. We'd been together for 4 years, and I felt very hurt that he wanted to continue spending time apart from me after all these years. After his first year living in his place alone, he moved in January. Around November that year, he asked if I wanted to move in, January 1st, and I agreed. Things were starting to fizzle out at this point between us, but I thought it was because I was resenting him and that maybe spending more time and living together would surely fix that. Wrong. Now we've almost been living together for a year, and we have sex once a month, if that. Used to be multiple times a week, and it's coming from me. I'm just not interested. We almost broke up in August because we weren't communicating. Throughout our relationship, we've talked about getting married 3 to 5 years in. And when we almost broke up, he told me he doesn't know if he sees himself ever getting married because, quote, marriage is just not sacred anymore, whatever that means. I actually don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means. It feels weird.
I don't know what that means. Yeah. I asked him to explain. He couldn't give me an answer. He used to do a lot of acts of service for me, my love language. And now everything is a chore, and he keeps a tally of everything he does for me. I keep the house clean, do the dishes, floors, bathroom, laundry, and he cooks dinner during the week. That's our deal. I work well into the evening, and it just makes sense. But I cook on the weekends. Pretty good deal on his part, if you ask me. I'm kind of rambling here, but things just don't feel the way they used to, and we don't connect like we did before, even though we're living in the same house. We want to go to counseling together, but it almost feels too late, as all of this resentment has just been building up between the two of us. I don't know what I'm looking for from you guys. Just some advice, I guess. We're going to be on our 6th year, and I just don't know what to do anymore. I don't know that I do know that I won't be anyone's girlfriend for 10 years. I want to be a wife and have a healthy partnership with my husband. He's also very stingy and doesn't like paying for anything. When we go grocery shopping, we just pay for our own stuff. But when we eat dinner together every night and make meals plans together, he just will put the more expensive stuff on my bill. And it's a huge turnoff. He also complained about having to pay for my birthday supper, said he was looking forward to it, but not looking forward to paying for it. When we grab snacks at our favorite ice cream / movie rental place with popcorn, he'll pay for his own snacks and I'll pay for mine, and then he'll eat half of mine. I don't mind paying for things. We make the same amount of money yearly, but it just is really unattractive to me that this is a common occurrence and literally everything has to be 50-50 by his standards, even though he's eating all of my snacks anyway. I've rambled enough. Thank you so much for giving us your amazing podcasts and advice. They get me through long work days and always give me a good laugh and give me hope that there are still good people out there.
All right, Jane, thank you so much for writing to us about this. Yeah, this is a pickle. You know, it sounds like you are really looking for something that makes you feel loved and appreciated, that, you know, it feels like somebody is kind of meeting you halfway in relationship. And for whatever reason, it sounds like your partner isn't really capable or willing to do that. It sounds like you're kind of giving and giving and giving and sort of waiting. And I can imagine that makes you feel pretty powerless, right? Like that you're doing all of this work, you're supporting your partner financially in lots of different ways, and you're not getting the thing that you want, which is, you know, deeper commitment, deeper affection, deeper intimacy from this person who you've been with for a long time. And I can only imagine how frustrating that is. And I can totally understand why you're feeling so resentful of some of the ways that he has treated you and taken you for granted in this relationship. Sierra and I are going to dig into some of the things that we would be thinking about if we were in a similar situation, and hopefully offer you some love and support in what feels like a really tricky moment. But before that, we're going to take a quick break.
All right, my darlings, welcome back, and a special welcome to our letter writer, Jane Doe. I'm going to just speak to you like you are one of my friends, which you are. Couple things. One, you are enough to decide if you've had enough. Like, you don't need two strangers from the internet. Like, as much as I love that you wrote us, as much as I'm honored to answer this question, I know a thing or two about resentment and the way that it poisons relationships. And it sounds like you have many reasons to legitimately feel resentment towards this partner of yours. It doesn't feel like you are growing anything together. You know, you're not building anything together. And also, if you don't want to move forward in a relationship steeped in resentment, you either have to decide to not resent anymore, decide to build something different, or break up with this person. And I know that it is literally those two things, right? Not talking about what he's going to bring to the table, because we don't know what he's capable of. We don't know what he wants to build with you. But you either have to say, listen, I don't want to end our relationship, but I know it can't grow here in this poisoned soil, right? I can't grow appreciation and gratitude and love and trust and intimacy with a partner that I don't have adoration and respect for, right? Because of whatever reason. You know, it's kind of like the lesson I learned in infidelity. Like, if you choose to stay together after somebody is unfaithful, you, the non-cheater, the person who was cheated on, have to decide just as much, if not more, than the cheater, that you want to stay and do things differently next time, right? So you, my darling letter writer, Jane, have to either say, I'm in it and I want it to be different, or I'm out. And you don't need our permission to be out. Like, here's where I'm going to be your friend. I'm going to say, like, this guy sounds like an annoying roommate, right? Like, the whole, like, splitting food, not, being like, I'm a frugal person. I don't make a ton of money, and I've always been a frugal, intentionally, I've always been intentional with my money, and also with a partnership, there's not a feeling of growth. Like, you can split your finances 50-50. You can keep your finances separated and still feel like you're growing something together. You're building a future together, and that's not happening here. So, like, let me be the voice inside you that says, like, this isn't going anywhere and it's too poisoned. I'm out, Or you have to say, I can't grow it here anymore like this. I have to contribute to changing the pH of the soil. I have to contribute to turning it over and making it a more fertile place, and see if he's willing to meet me in that work. Those are the two paths. Or you're out. Like,
yeah. And I want to, like, name that Sierra's right, that this is going to have to be a two-way street when it comes to the relationship, right? Like, I think you are going to have to start to be honest with him about, if you aren't already, about how the things that he's doing makes you feel, right? About how the lack of intimacy makes you feel, about what it makes you feel when he says he doesn't want to get married ever, how it makes you feel when he doesn't do any of the housework, right? And I say that not as a way to say, like, it's your fault that he's doing all these things. He should know better. Like, he should be more actively involved in this relationship. And also, if you are somebody who wants to give this a go and you want to challenge the resentment that you're feeling, you can give him the opportunity to see how his actions are making you feel unloved, taken for granted, unsupported. And if you want to create a relationship out of, like Sierra said, that operates different than the one that you are currently operating in, then you're going to have to be honest with about those things, not because you need to like correct him, but because you deserve to be honest about how you're feeling in this relationship, right? Like you have to be able to take up space in this. And part of that is by taking up space in this relationship, by telling him how all of these things are making you feel. And also, if he hears that and doesn't change, I don't usually like this advice, but I'm going to give it. If he wanted to, he would. You know what I mean? Like at this point in the relationship, this long in, if he's still continuing to behave this way, even as you're telling him, this makes me feel like shit. Why are you doing this? This makes me feel taken advantage of. It really hurts my feelings when you do this thing, and he's still doing it over and over. Like you've given him enough information for him to start making different decisions about how he wants to show up. And if he wanted to behave differently, he would be behaving differently. And so like, I just say that because I don't want you to get stuck in this thing where you're like in a place where you're constantly trying to work it out. Cause that's also, I think, a trap that folks fall into where it's like, oh, I just haven't put enough effort into it. If I say it in the right way, I'll get him to finally see that he needs to be behaving differently or whatever it is, right? But he also needs to show up in this relationship differently. And at this point, you haven't given me any indication that he's able or willing to do that. And then my question for you is, why are you in a relationship with somebody who isn't capable of meeting you where you need to be met, right? What is this man bringing to you that is actually supportive and sustainable and nutritional or nutritious for you? Because it sounds like you're kind of in this thing because you thought this was the next right thing for you to do, and it turns out it wasn't. And so you need to start making some decisions about what you actually want and if this man is actually capable of giving you the things that you need in this relationship. Because so far he's proven that he's proven that he can't, right? Or that he won't. So something needs to change about that.
And a little bit of accountability that you can internalize whenever you're capable. Like, honestly, the biggest thing that drew me to this letter is that you were like, the ball was in his court because it was his house. And I want to say, like, the ball's in your court, too, because it's your relationship, right? If
yeah,
you
absolutely.
want somebody to ask you to move in, you have to say, I'd like to move in with you. What do you think about that? You know, resentment is built because we're silencing ourselves, right? You would feel infinitely less resentment if you had spoken your desires out loud and he had said, oh, no, I'm not ready to do that. You might feel hurt. You might feel disappointed. You might feel unattracted to him. But the resentment wouldn't be there because you're no longer expecting him to act out your desires without any direction. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get it. After both Sam and I are like 5 years in, 4 years in, there should be more effort put out on his side. So we're definitely
talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. You know what I mean? Like 4 years in and you buy a house and you're not like, hey, I'd like you to move in someday. Yeah, don't get us wrong. We are on your side, but the ball's yours too. You know what I mean? This is your court. The relationship is your court. It's not just your house. You know what I mean? And you have to be able to, like, resentment is bred because we're not vocalizing our needs and they're not being met, right? It's not that people can't disappoint us if we vocalize our needs. It's that you have to get used to, he's not going to be a mind reader. He should be better than this.
Yes. Yeah.
But he's not going to be a mind reader. So like you have to be able to say, it hurts my feelings that we're not building something together. It hurts my feelings or I feel unsupported or like we're not growing anything together when you don't invite me to live with you or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you have to be, even in the most perfect relationships, you're still going to need to vocalize your needs. That's a huge thing that I'm taking away from this letter is not how your boyfriend should know better, but that in the future, in this relationship or another one, you're going to have to be able to articulate what you need and want from even the most giving and attentive people.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes it's even easier for us to just kind of sit back and say this, you know, my partner should know better and sit in that resentment than it is to maybe acknowledge the fact that like, this isn't the right person for you, right? That they're not suddenly going to wake up one day and be able to be fully attuned to who you are and what you need. And I just want to offer that as a way to say, like, is this the amount of energy that you're putting into this relationship sustainable for you? And what is it bringing to your life that is actually building you up and affirming you? Because it doesn't sound like there's much there in this particular moment. So you either need to try and shake up this relationship in a way that can get him to see that you need something different, or acknowledge the fact that, like, this relationship hasn't been supportive of you for the last, 2 years, and that you deserve a different relationship, a better relationship, or to even be able to spend all of the time and energy that you're putting into supporting him and also resenting him into creating a life for yourself that you actually want to be living.
We love you. We're sorry that we were blunt in our...
Absolutely sorry.
We're mostly harsh for him, not for the letter.
No, I'm really annoyed with your partner, to be honest.
Yeah. We're blunt in that, like, you need to ask for your needs and create the relationship that you want. You're an active player on this court, right? And
absolutely.
After 5 years, I would be disappointed too. I'd be like, you're not going to pay for the meat and you're going to eat that portion, or whatever.
That's real. That's really reasonable.
Anyway, we love you so much and we hope this helps.
Thank you so much for writing. All right, everyone. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours, you can support us on Patreon. If you support us on Patreon for as little as $5 a month, you'll get an additional bonus weekly episode, as well as access to those monthly office hours. That's patreon.com/justbreakuppod.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes, but most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need 2 random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music, recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and his music. And remember, if you're waiting around for somebody to show you how they love you, you are equally responsible to ask for that love. And be aware of how their inaction is making you feel. Right? Like, it's valid to be disappointed. It's valid to be hurt. It's valid to say, like, you should have known to do X, Y, and Z. And also, I'm going to tell you about my feelings and my needs and say, I'm interested in doing this with you. What do you think about that? Right? It's a give and a take. There's a energy exchange going on here. But most importantly, it's your court too. You can grab the ball. And if all else fails,
just break up.